Typically what I see for new investors when they're first getting started is they work really hard and they get their first property under contract. And their first response is, yes, finally, after all this work, I got my first property under contract. I'm gonna make so much money. And that's immediately followed up with the emotion of, oh crap, I just got my first property under contract. Am I actually gonna make money or am I gonna lose money? This is the most expensive thing potentially that I've ever bought in my life. And generally, I think people overcomplicate this. And I also think that people can convince themselves of pretty much anything, whether it's a good deal or bad deal, depending on what metrics they're looking at. And so I want to create this two-part video series this week and in next week's video, where I'm going to break down a couple of the top metrics that I look at. After purchasing well over 100 investment properties and putting tens of millions of dollars to work in investment properties, these are the most important aspects that I think you should look at if you're in that position where you're trying to determine, is this an actual deal or not? So in this world of tech companies being valued at billions of dollars that have never made a single penny, or people paying millions for digital pictures that you could download in 5 seconds, or paying millions of dollars for plots of land in a virtual world, how the heck do you know what something is actually worth? I mean, if you look at the real estate industry, with prices going up, with inflation, with interest rates going up, how do you determine that the property that you're about to buy is actually worth the price? Not what the market's willing to pay for it, but what is the actual value of that piece of property? Warren Buffett, a small-time investor, maybe you've heard of him, recently said that he wouldn't pay $25 for all the cryptocurrency in the entire world. And there's a lot of cryptocurrency out there. There's trillions of dollars invested in cryptocurrency. So why would Warren not pay $25 for all of it? I don't think he has anything specifically against cryptocurrency or the concept of cryptocurrency in general. And interestingly, right after he said this, pretty much all the cryptocurrency markets melted down. I don't think it was a result of him saying this, but it probably added fuel to the fire. The reason that he said this, and I think it's super important for you to understand if you're going to invest in real estate as well, it boils down to a term called intrinsic value. Intrinsic value is not the market value, and it's not what somebody is willing to pay for an asset right now. It tends to cut through all the hype, all the CNBC articles and Business Insider articles that say the market's super hot, you gotta buy, that might drag the market value up, or on the other end of the spectrum, the negativity that might drag the market value down. And it gets to what is the value of the underlying asset underneath what it is you're buying. So for cryptocurrency, there's really no underlying asset. You're investing in a concept, and if enough people invest in it, then that gives it market value. And it's the same with a lot of tech companies. What Warren Buffett likes to invest in is businesses. He buys shares of businesses that are producing something where you can look at it's tangible and you can see what the value is based on what the production of that business is. So we're real estate investors, so how does this apply to real estate investing, and how do you determine the intrinsic value of a piece of real estate? A simple starting point for real estate intrinsic value is determine what's the replacement cost. Like if this house that I'm about to buy burns down, what's it gonna cost me to rebuild this? And most likely you're always going to pay either more or less than that value. Most real estate isn't trading at its replacement cost, but it's a good place to start. As a next step then, you can look at that piece of property and say, okay, what can I logically anticipate this property to bring in well into the future in terms of income? And you can add up all that income and then bring it back to today and say, okay, what's the value today based on the logical amount of income that I can anticipate making from this property? And that's a great way to determine the intrinsic value. I think where real estate investors in particular get themselves into trouble and potentially pay too much is when they calculate the value based on some temporary market condition. So for example, some sort of financing that exists today based on some sort of market condition like low interest rates or some financing program that might be temporary and it might not be around in the future, and so it might impact future income. Or Another example is maybe there's a tech platform like Airbnb that allows you to rent that property for 4 times as much as the market rent is in that same area. So, you calculate the price of the property and you justify a much higher price based on that Airbnb income, and you don't calculate what the market rate is. Or a government program, like opportunity zones, where they give you this huge tax break if you buy in certain areas, so you justify not adhering to the fundamentals and buying something that doesn't produce income, but you get this tax break at the end, and so you ignore the fundamentals on an investment like that. So am I saying you shouldn't take advantage of current market conditions or some program that's going to help boost your income by 4 times as much? No, that's not what I'm saying. Definitely take advantage of what might be temporary conditions that are going to help you increase your income. So for example, I have properties that I bought using a DSCR loan, which is an investment type of financing that up until recently wasn't available for single family homes. And I use those properties as Airbnbs, so I get 4 to 5 times as much income as I would with market rent, and I'm buying them in opportunity zones, so I'm getting a tax benefit on them as well. So it's like this triple whammy of increased revenue. However, I don't underwrite them or base my purchase price on any one of those programs, because I know interest rates are going to go up and loan programs are going to go away. I know that Airbnb will probably get more saturated and returns might go down there. And I also know it's never smart to put all your eggs in a government-run program basket, because the government doesn't have the best track record of running programs efficiently. So I underwrite based on intrinsic value, and that's the price point that I pay based on, and then I take advantage of other temporary conditions that might boost the income from there. So figuring out the intrinsic value is the first step that I recommend when trying to determine, am I making a great decision or am I making a soul-crushing mistake by buying this property? So if you found this video compelling and it helped shape your mind, then hit that like button. Also hit the subscribe and the tiny little notification bell next to it so that you can be notified next week when part 2 of this 2-part video series is released. Part 1 was figuring out the intrinsic value. Part 2 is the framework I use to determine whether I should walk away or I should pull the trigger on a potential investment property. So I will see you in next week's video.